Today we're going to learn how to use a metronome. Stick around. Hello everyone, it's James from Practice Like a Pro, providing with simple, clear guitar tips to help you on your guitar playing journey. So today we're going to talk about how to practice with a metronome, not only with single notes but with chords as well. Let's get into it. We're going to start with chords first and we'll look at single notes later on in the video, so make sure that you stick around for it. So for today's lesson, all we're going to use is a G chord and a C chord. And these are just to illustrate how we're going to practice with the metronome. Feel free to use whatever chords that you're working on. A metronome's a great substitute for the backbeat of a song, but you can scale it to where you're at in your practice. So, all we're going to do to begin with, and this is if you've never practiced with a metronome before and you're just kind of finding your way with the chords, this is the first exercise that I'd give you. And all I want you to do is set the metronome to 70 BPM, which is beats per minute, and strum on the first click of the metronome. Just a quick interjection before we get into the meat and potatoes of today. Try and find a metronome that has what we call an accent on beat 1. So what that means is it's a higher pitched beep, or it's a little bit louder, or it's a different noise. This is really important because you need to feel where the first beat of the bar is. So what we're going to do for this first exercise, we're just going to strum the first beat of each bar. So as the metronome's clicking, on beat 1, like I mentioned earlier, you should have a metronome with a higher pitched beep or a little bit of a different noise on beat 1. That's when I want you to strum your chord. Now you can either do this out loud or in your head. I want you to count where the next beats of the bar are. So for example, you'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is great because it's working on your internal clock, but it's also a great muscle memory exercise as well. As you get more comfortable with that, I'd bring the speed up. Maybe not go past 120 BPM, and I'm going to explain why later in the video. But it's a great way to gauge your progress, just catching the first beat of each bar. When you're comfortable with that, try strumming 4 strokes per bar. So wind the metronome back, so 60, 70 BPM, and catch every beat of the bar. Now your pick should be hitting the string, hitting the string closest to your nose, exactly when the metronome clicks. Now please practice quality over quantity. It's really humbling. Slow the metronome down and make sure that you're getting it right on the nose, because you'd be surprised actually how wonky your timing can be. So the third step for chords is find a strumming pattern that you're working on. Pick a speed with the metronome and try and strum it in time. So let's say we're working on a pattern that goes down, 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 up, down, which in this case is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now there's only one extra beat from what we did in the previous exercise, which is on what we call the and of 3. It's in the gap between the third beat and the fourth beat. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Try and get that with the metronome now and scale it and see how quick you can go before you lose your bottle. Okay, so there's some chord things for you to work on. We're going to have a look at melody now. Now, for today's exercises, all I'm going to use is the good old A minor pentatonic, okay? Again, these are hard and fast rules. Find what you're working on in your practice. Feel free to use what I'm using, but make it applicable to you. This is what this is all about. Okay, so A minor pentatonic. I'll just put it on screen for you if you want to just pause it and double check what I'm doing. Okay, a little bit of music theory. Don't click off the video, don't get scared. It's not as scary as you think it is. So we're going to talk about crotchets, quavers, and semiquavers. Now, crotchets are basically the click of the metronome. As the metronome's going 1, 2, 3, 4. You're counting what we call crotchets, and those last for a whole beat. So what you can do is you can play up and down the scale, and every time the metronome clicks, you're to play a note of the scale. Move that gradually up from 60 BPM all the way up to 120 BPM. Once you're comfortable with that, we can then go on to what we call quavers, which a quaver is half a beat. So instead of counting each bar 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to count it 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Notice how, while I was doing this with my hand, I was almost sort of making a V. If you imagine, I'll put a diagram on the screen for you. If you imagine the ands are exactly in the middle between what we call the downbeat, which is beat 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now the metronome won't count the offbeats for you. You have to do it, and this is where you really start to develop your internal clock, right? So what I do to begin with before you even try and play quavers is put the metronome on and try and find it in the middle, whether you're tapping on the desk, on the top of your guitar, or saying it out loud as the metronome's clicking. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then we're going to try and translate it into the notes. Now, because we're playing half a beat for each note of the scale, it's going to be twice as quick. So again, bring the metronome back and practice just as you did before, but you'll notice that if you play crotchets at 120 BPM and then quavers at 60 BPM, you're playing double the speed, so you're half the speed of the metronome. So you shouldn't really have to push your metronome past 120 BPM for quite a while, because as soon as you get up to that threshold where you find it easy at the upper settings of the metronome, you then need to subdivide it, start back at the bottom and move on up. Once you've mastered that, we have what's called semiquavers. Now, semiquavers last for a quarter of a beat. Now, these are counted 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and. These can be really intimidating because the metronome's only giving you the downbeat, the 1, the 2, the 3 and the 4. The other 3 notes of each beat, you're on your own. You need to find them yourself. So you'll hear people like Joe Bonamassa, Eric Johnson, these virtuosic guitar players, and they're playing really, really quick. Chances are they're playing in semiquavers. They're playing in, if your beat's 1, 2, 3, 4, they're going. Notice how I'm accenting, picking harder, the first beat of each bar, just to show you where it is. So the final step of this for where you're at, practice the A minor pentatonic in semiquavers. Again, bring the metronome back. Really, really take your time with it. I also need to add, don't sacrifice poor technique for quicker speeds on the metronome. This isn't something that you can rush. It's literally the hours that you put into it will give you a direct correlation with the results. If you're not ready to jump into semiquavers because you can't do quavers, well, you need to work on your quavers first. I try and do this in a very methodical kind of way. Now, you don't just have to use scales for this. You can use spider exercises. If you have a look on the channel, we've got all kinds of spider exercises that you can check out. But you've got to really take an adult approach on this, and slow and steady wins the race. Everybody wants to go as fast as they can, but you need to go about it the right way. I hope some of those tips were helpful. If they were, let us know in the comments. If you like what we do here at Practice Like a Pro, please do consider subscribing. We upload 3 guitar lessons a week, sometimes 4. And if you want to learn something else, please check out one of his other videos. Until I see you next time, thank you very much. Keep practicing like a pro. Cheers.